The council chamber on Nexus Prime Station stretched 300 meters in diameter. Representatives from 247 species filled the curved seats that rose in concentric circles toward the domed ceiling. The air hummed with the sound of translation devices converting thousands of languages into coherent speech. At the center podium stood Ambassador Velthar, his 4 arms folded across his chest in the traditional pose of his people. Velthar was old even by Karathi standards. His species had been exploring the galaxy for 20,000 cycles before most of the species in this room had discovered fire. The deep green of his skin had faded to a pale olive, and the wisdom marks around his eyes told of centuries spent observing the rise and fall of civilizations. Honored council members, Velthar began, his voice carrying the weight of ages. I stand before you today to discuss the newest applicants for membership in the Galactic Unity Assembly. The species known as humans, from the planet they call Earth. A ripple of interest moved through the chamber. Humanity had only made first contact 3 years ago. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were basic. Most species viewed them as an unremarkable addition to the galactic community. Commander Zixisnel of the Valorian Empire rose from his seat. The Valorians were a warrior species, proud and powerful. Zixisnel stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body covered in thick armored scales that had evolved to withstand the harsh conditions of his homeworld. Elder Velthar, Zixisnel said with barely concealed contempt, surely we waste the council's time discussing such a minor species. The humans are weak. They move slowly. Their technology is thousands of cycles behind our own. What possible concern could they present? Velthar's eyes, dark and knowing, fixed on the Valorian commander. That is precisely why I must speak. The Korathi have made it our duty to observe and record. We have studied humanity since they first split the atom on their world. What we have learned troubles us greatly. High Magistrate Korvesh, the council leader, leaned forward in his seat. His species, the Quill, were known for their diplomatic nature and careful decision-making. Please, Ambassador Velthar, share your concerns. The council will listen. Velthar activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. An image of Earth materialized, rotating slowly in the air. Blue oceans covered most of the surface. White clouds swirled in complex patterns. Green and brown landmasses broke through the water. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, Velthar stated. It is one of the most hostile environments we have ever catalogued. Murmurs of disbelief spread through the chamber. The planet looked beautiful, almost peaceful. How could such a world be considered deadly? Velthar continued. The gravity is 0.98 standard, which may seem normal, but the planet's mass distribution creates zones of extreme gravitational stress. The atmospheric composition includes 21% oxygen, a highly reactive and corrosive gas. The temperature variations range from -80 degrees to +60 degrees in a single cycle. He pulled up more data. The planet experiences regular catastrophic weather events. Hurricanes with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, tornadoes that can level entire settlements, earthquakes that reshape continents, volcanic eruptions that darken the sky for years, and yet humans thrive in all of these environments. A representative from the peaceful Minarian collective spoke up. Surely their technology protects them from these dangers? No, Velthar replied quietly. Humans evolved on this world. Their biology adapted to survive conditions that would kill most of us within hours. Let me show you what this means. The hologram shifted to display human anatomy. Velthar highlighted the skeletal structure. Human bones are reinforced with calcium and phosphorus compounds, making them incredibly dense and difficult to break. Their muscles contain fast-twitch fibers that can generate explosive force. Their cardiovascular system can operate under extreme stress for extended periods. He zoomed in on the human nervous system. Most concerning is their pain tolerance. Humans possess the ability to continue functioning even when suffering injuries that would incapacitate other species. They have documented cases of individuals continuing to fight, work, or rescue others while experiencing what should be debilitating trauma. Commander Zixisnel laughed, a harsh barking sound. Pain tolerance means nothing in modern warfare, Elder. Our weapons kill instantly. Our armor deflects their primitive projectiles. You speak of them as if they are some great threat, but I see only a species that got lucky enough to survive a harsh world. Velthar turned to face the Valorian directly. You misunderstand my warning, Commander. I do not fear humanity because of their capacity for violence, though that capacity is significant. I fear them because they do not know their own limits. They evolved on a world that constantly tested them, and they learned to push beyond what should be possible. The Elder pulled up historical records from Earth. Images played across the hologram. Humans climbing mountains in conditions that would freeze most species solid. Humans diving to ocean depths that would crush standard pressure suits. Humans running distances that exceeded the endurance of species bred for speed. Humans surviving radiation levels, disease outbreaks, and injuries that the Korathi medical database classified as fatal. In their own history, Velthar explained, humans regularly accomplish what they themselves consider impossible. They call it the human spirit. But it is more than that. It is a biological and psychological adaptation to never accept defeat. When a human decides something must be done, they find a way, regardless of cost. Captain Eric Morrison sat quietly in the human delegation section. He was young for an ambassador, barely 40 years old, with dark hair and calm gray eyes. Next to him sat Dr. Sophie Grant, a xenobiologist who had been studying galactic species since first contact. Both listened to Velthar's presentation with interest. Sophie leaned close to Eric and whispered, "He understands us better than most of our own politicians." Eric nodded but said nothing. He wanted to hear where this was going. Velthar addressed the council again. "I am not asking you to fear humanity. I am asking you to approach them with appropriate caution and respect. They are newcomers to galactic society, but they are not weak. Do not make the mistake of judging them by their technology or their appearance. Judge them by what they have survived and overcome." High Magistrate Corvesh considered the Elder's words carefully. "What do you recommend, Ambassador Velthar?" "Grant them membership," Velthar said. "But establish clear boundaries and protocols. Make sure all species understand that humans are not to be trifled with. Most importantly, earn their friendship rather than their enmity. A species that survived a Class 12 death world makes a far better ally than enemy." Commander Zeeksnell stood again. "I call for a vote. This council has heard enough fear-mongering about a species that poses no credible threat. I propose we grant the humans limited membership and treat them as we would any other minor civilization." The vote was called. Of the 247 species present, 219 voted in favor of Zeeksnell's proposal. Only the Korathi and a handful of other ancient species voted against it. The decision was made. Humanity would be granted membership, but without the special considerations Velthar had requested. As the council session ended and representatives filed out of the chamber, Velthar approached Eric Morrison. The old Korathi bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Ambassador Morrison," Velthar said, "I apologize if my presentation seemed clinical or insulting to your people. It was not my intention." Eric smiled and returned the bow. "No apology needed, Ambassador Velthar. Everything you said was accurate. My people appreciate honesty, especially when it comes from a place of wisdom." Velthar's eyes showed sadness. "I tried to warn them, but they did not listen. They see your current technology and assume it reflects your capabilities. They do not understand that humans are patient, adaptive, and driven." "What do you think will happen?" Sophie asked. The Elder looked toward where Commander Zeeksnell was leaving the chamber, surrounded by his Valorian officers. "Someone will test you. Someone always tests the newcomer. They will expect you to fold, to submit, to accept your place in the galactic order." He paused. "They will learn they were wrong. I only hope the lesson does not cost too many lives." Eric watched the Korathi ambassador walk away, his ancient form still dignified despite his age. Sophie touched Eric's arm. "Do you think he's right? Will someone come after us?" Eric thought about Earth's history. The wars, the struggles, the countless times humanity had been pushed to the edge and somehow found a way to push back. "If they do," he said quietly, "they'll learn the same lesson our own ancestors learned. Never underestimate someone who refuses to quit." The lights of Nexus Prime dimmed as the station entered its rest cycle. In the darkness, the seeds of conflict had already been planted. The Council had dismissed the Elder's warning, and somewhere in the galaxy, forces were already moving that would test whether Velthar's fears were justified. 6 months passed since the Council meeting on Nexus Prime. Commander Zixnell stood on the bridge of his warship, the Crimson Blade, watching the blue and green planet called New Haven grow larger on the view screen. Behind him, 4 more Valorian vessels held formation, their weapons charged and ready. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "scans confirm the colony has minimal defenses. 1 orbital platform with light weapons. Ground installations are mostly civilian infrastructure. We detect approximately 8,000 human inhabitants." Zixnell smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Perfect. A small colony, far from Earth, with no military presence worth mentioning. We will teach these humans their place in the galactic order." He activated the communication array. "All ships, prepare for attack pattern Omega. We will disable their orbital platform first, then demand their surrender. If they resist, we will demonstrate the price of defying the Valorian Empire." On New Haven's surface, Lieutenant Jake Henderson was conducting a routine inspection of the colony's defense grid when alarms started screaming. He was a former Earth Defense Force officer, assigned to this remote outpost because nothing ever happened here. That changed in an instant. "Lieutenant," the communications officer called out. 5 unknown vessels just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're powering weapons. Jake ran to the command center, his mind already calculating their limited options. The colony had never been intended as a military base. They had mining equipment, agricultural facilities, and basic defenses meant to ward off pirates, not a full battle fleet. Nicole Parker, the settlement administrator, was already in the command center. She was a tough woman in her mid-40s, with short brown hair and eyes that had seen plenty of frontier hardships. Her 2 children were at the school on the eastern edge of the settlement. "How bad is it?" she asked Jake. 5 warships, Valorian design, Jake replied. "They could glass this planet from orbit if they wanted to." Nicole's jaw tightened. "Then we contact Earth and prepare to evacuate." Before Jake could respond, the communication system crackled to life. Commander Zixnell's face appeared on the screen, his scaled features filled with arrogance. "Human colony of New Haven," he declared. "I am Commander Zixnell of the Valorian Empire. Your presence in this sector is an insult to our territorial claims. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be relocated. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Nicole stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear Jake could see in her eyes. "This system was unclaimed when we arrived. We have every right to be here under galactic law." Zixnell laughed. "Galactic law is for species that can enforce it. You are weak. You are few. You will submit or you will die." The transmission ended. Seconds later, energy beams lanced down from orbit and destroyed the colony's only orbital platform. The explosion lit up the morning sky like a second sun. "Send the distress signal to Earth," Nicole ordered. "Jake, activate emergency protocols. Get everyone to the shelters." Jake knew the shelters would not save them from an orbital bombardment. But he also knew Nicole was buying time. The distress signal would take hours to reach Earth. Any response would take days. They were on their own. Tyler Chen, the colony's chief engineer, burst into the command center. He was a stocky man with grease-stained hands and a mind that could fix anything. "I've got an idea," he said quickly. "The mining equipment. We can modify the fusion cutters. They were designed to slice through rock, but they'll cut through hull plating just as easily." "They have to land first," Jake pointed out. "Then we make them land," Tyler responded. "We can't fight them in space, but we can make it costly for them on the ground." Nicole looked at both men. She was not a soldier. She was an administrator, a mother, Someone who had come to this colony to build a new life away from Earth's crowded cities. But she knew humanity's history. She knew what her ancestors had done when faced with impossible odds. "Do it," she said. "Prepare everything we have. If they want this colony, they're going to pay for every meter." Commander Zeexnell watched from orbit as his troops prepared to land. He had 300 elite warriors, equipped with the finest armor and weapons the Valorian Empire could produce. The humans below had mining tools and desperation. "This will be over in an hour," he told his officers. The Valorian dropships descended through New Haven's atmosphere. They landed on the outskirts of the main settlement, and armored warriors poured out, weapons ready. They expected to find frightened civilians cowering in their shelters. Instead, they found an empty street and an eerie silence. Lieutenant Jake Henderson watched from his position in a partially collapsed building. He had 32 volunteers with him, miners, farmers, teachers, all armed with whatever weapons they could find. Most had hunting rifles. A few had military-grade weapons from Earth. Tyler had given each team a modified fusion cutter. "Wait for them to get closer," Jake whispered into his communicator. The Valorian squad moved forward, their sensors scanning for life signs. Their armor was designed to withstand energy weapons. They had shields that could deflect projectiles. They were trained warriors who had conquered a dozen worlds. Jake gave the signal. The fusion cutters activated first, their beams slicing through the air and cutting into Valorian armor like it was paper. The warriors screamed in surprise and pain. Before they could react, the human volunteers opened fire with their rifles. The Valorians returned fire, their energy weapons tearing through buildings. But the humans were already moving, using the ruins for cover, striking from unexpected angles. They fought like people who had nothing to lose and everything to protect. One Valorian warrior took 3 bullets to the chest. His armor held, but the impact knocked him backward. He raised his weapon toward the building where the shots came from, but a 4th bullet caught him in the neck joint, where the armor was weakest. He went down. His squad leader was shocked. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to break under pressure. But these humans fought with a ferocity that reminded him of the ancient warriors from Valorian history, the ones who had united their world through blood and iron. Commander Zeexnell watched the battlefields in disbelief. His warriors were being forced back. Not defeated, but actually pushed into defensive positions by miners with improvised weapons. "How is this possible?" he demanded. His tactical officer checked the reports. "Sir, the humans are sustaining injuries that should incapacitate them. But they continue fighting. We have confirmed kills on targets that then reappeared minutes later in different positions. Our troops report that wounded humans seem to ignore pain entirely." One report caught Zeexnell's attention. A human male had been shot twice in the leg and once in the shoulder. Instead of falling, he had used a destroyed vehicle for cover and continued firing until a Valorian warrior got close. Then the human had attacked with a mining tool, killing the warrior in close combat before finally collapsing from blood loss. Another report detailed a human female who had carried 2 wounded civilians to safety while under heavy fire, taking 3 hits herself but refusing to stop until both civilians were in shelter. Tyler Chen coordinated his teams from the engineering station beneath the colony. He watched the tactical display, moving his people like pieces on a chessboard. When the Valorians adapted to one tactic, he changed to another. When they tried to surround a position, he collapsed it and opened a new front. "They're trained for traditional warfare," Tyler explained to Nicole. "They expect us to hold positions and trade fire. Instead, we hit and move. We make them think we're everywhere." The battle raged for 6 hours. The Valorians had superior weapons and armor. They had more troops. They had every advantage except one. They did not understand human determination. When a Valorian warrior was wounded, he followed his training and fell back to receive medical attention. When a human volunteer was wounded, he or she kept fighting until they physically could not move. The Valorians fought to win. The humans fought to survive. By nightfall, Commander Zeexnell admitted defeat. He had lost 90 warriors, nearly a third of his force. The humans had lost 42, but every one of those humans had taken multiple Valorians with them. Retreat to the ships, Zixnell ordered. Prepare for orbital bombardment. Jake Henderson heard the order through a captured Valorian communication device. Nicole, he called. They're pulling back. They're going to hit us from space. Nicole stood in the center of the command room, surrounded by wounded volunteers and grieving families. Her own son had been injured during the fighting, a piece of shrapnel in his arm. He had bandaged it himself and returned to help others. She looked at the faces around her. Scared, tired, but not defeated. Never defeated. Then we make them see what it costs, she said quietly. But before the Valorian ships could open fire, new contacts appeared on their sensors. 12 vessels, dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Human warships, responding to the distress call. Admiral Kevin Ross broadcast on all frequencies. Valorian ships, this is the United Earth Defense Fleet. You have attacked a human colony without provocation. Stand down immediately, or we will consider this an act of war. Commander Zixnell stared at the new arrivals. His ships were damaged. His troops were demoralized. And now he faced a human fleet that had crossed dozens of light years in response to an attack on a single small colony. He understood in that moment what Elder Velthar had tried to warn the Council about. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not calculate acceptable losses or strategic withdrawals. They fought for each other with a dedication that bordered on madness. Retreat, Zixnell ordered. Full speed. We returned to Valorian space. On New Haven's surface, the colonists watched the Valorian ships flee. They had won, but the cost had been high. 42 dead, over 100 wounded, half the settlement in ruins. Jake Henderson stood next to Nicole, both of them watching the sunrise. Admiral Ross had sent down medical teams, and Earth was already dispatching reconstruction equipment. They'll come back, Nicole said quietly. Jake nodded. Probably, but they'll think twice before underestimating us again. Above them, Admiral Ross watched New Haven from the bridge of his flagship. His officers were celebrating the retreat of the Valorian fleet, but Ross felt only grim satisfaction. The galaxy had just learned a lesson, but he knew it would not be the last time someone tested humanity's resolve. The message would spread. Humans did not break easily. The news of New Haven spread through the Valorian Empire like wildfire. Commander Zixnell had returned home in disgrace, his forces beaten by what should have been helpless prey. The Empire's military council demanded action. They could not allow such humiliation to stand. Within 2 weeks, 15 Valorian warships assembled at the edge of their territory. It was the largest fleet deployment in 50 years. Each ship carried hundreds of warriors, the finest troops the Empire had ever produced. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand sustained bombardment. Commander Zixnell stood on the bridge of the new flagship, the Eternal Fury. The Council had given him one chance to redeem himself. He would lead the fleet to Earth itself and force humanity's unconditional surrender. This time there would be no mistakes. We will show the galaxy what happens when you defy the Valorian Empire, Zixnell declared to his officers. These humans got lucky on New Haven. They will not be lucky twice. The fleet entered faster than light travel, heading straight for Earth. On Earth, in the defense headquarters buried beneath the mountains of Colorado, Admiral Kevin Ross studied the latest intelligence reports. His network of deep space sensors had detected the Valorian fleet 3 days ago. They would arrive in approximately 6 hours. Ross was a career military officer, gray-haired and stern-faced. He had spent 30 years preparing Earth's defenses against the day when humanity would face a real threat from space. That day had arrived. Captain Lisa Warren stood beside him, studying the tactical display. She commanded the UES Defiant, Earth's most advanced warship. At 35, she was the youngest ship captain in the fleet, but her record spoke for itself. She had trained for every possible combat scenario. 15 ships, Lisa said. They outnumber us more than 2 to 1. Ross nodded. But they don't know what we're capable of. The ships we sent to New Haven were showing restraint. No more restraint. He pulled up the deployment plan. Earth's defense fleet consisted of 7 warships, each packed with technology that pushed the limits of human engineering. They were faster, more maneuverable, and more heavily armed than any Galactic Navy knew. Lieutenant Brandon Cole, the Defiant's tactical officer, ran final checks on the weapon systems. He was a quiet man with sharp eyes and faster reflexes than anyone else on the crew. "Admiral," he reported, "all ships are ready. Railguns are charged. Missile batteries are loaded. Defensive grids are active." A new contact appeared on the display. Ross recognized the signature immediately. "We have a visitor." A Korathi vessel emerged from faster-than-light travel and broadcast a request for immediate docking. Minutes later, Ambassador Velthar entered the command center, his ancient form moving with surprising speed. "Admiral Ross," Velthar said urgently, "I came to warn you. The Valorian fleet is more powerful than you realize. They carry weapons that can sterilize a planet's surface. They have conquered 17 worlds. Please, consider evacuation protocols." Ross looked at the old alien with respect. "Ambassador, I appreciate your concern. But humanity doesn't run from fights. We end them." Velthar studied the human admiral carefully. "You understand you are facing annihilation?" "No, Ambassador," Lisa Warren interjected. "They're facing us." Velthar provided detailed intelligence on Valorian tactics, shield frequencies, and weapon capabilities. Ross absorbed every detail, his strategic mind already forming a battle plan. When the Elder finished, Ross thanked him and offered him a seat in the observation deck. "You may want to watch this," Ross said. "And when it's over, you can report to your people what humanity is truly capable of." The Valorian fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Their sensors immediately detected the 7 human ships waiting in formation between them and the blue planet. Commander Zeke Snell laughed when he saw the numbers. 7 ships against 15. They're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. He opened a communication channel to Earth. "Humans of Earth, this is Commander Zixnal of the Valorian Empire. You have one opportunity to surrender unconditionally. Submit now, and we will allow your species to survive as servants of the Empire. Resist, and we will reduce your world to ash." Admiral Ross appeared on the screen, his expression calm and cold. "Commander Zeke Snell, this is Admiral Kevin Ross of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You have attacked our colony and killed our people. You have threatened our homeworld. We hereby declare that you have 5 minutes to turn your fleet around and leave this system. This is your only warning." Zeke Snell roared with laughter. "You dare threaten me? I have 15 ships and thousands of warriors. You have 7 small vessels and delusions of strength. I will enjoy watching your world burn." Ross leaned forward slightly. 4 minutes and 30 seconds, Commander. I suggest you use them wisely." The transmission ended. Zixnell's amusement turned to rage. "All ships, advance formation. Prepare to destroy the human fleet." The Valorian ships moved forward in their standard battle formation, a wedge designed to concentrate firepower on a single target while maintaining defensive coverage. It was a formation that had won them dozens of battles. On the bridge of the Defiant, Lisa Warren watched the approaching fleet. "All crews," she broadcast to the human ships, "engage on my mark. Remember your training. Show them what Earth builds." The distance closed. Valorian targeting systems locked onto the human ships. Commander Zixanel raised his hand to give the order to fire. Lisa spoke one word. Now, the human ships moved. Not the slow, predictable maneuvers of standard naval warfare, but sudden, violent accelerations that pushed the boundaries of physics. The Defiant went from stationary to 15% light speed in 3 seconds, pulling maneuvers that generated forces exceeding 6 gravities. Inside the ship, the crew endured crushing pressure. Their specially designed seats and pressure suits helped, but every person aboard felt like they were being pressed into the deck. Normal humans would have blacked out. Earth's military had spent decades selecting and training personnel who could function under extreme conditions. Brandon Cole kept his hands steady on the targeting controls despite feeling like his chest was being crushed. Target locked. Firing solution confirmed. The Defiant's railgun fired. Unlike energy weapons that could be deflected by shields, the railgun launched solid projectiles at velocities that made them essentially unstoppable. The tungsten rod struck the lead Valorian ship's shield and punched straight through it, the kinetic energy overwhelming the defensive field before it could adapt. The projectile tore through the ship's hull, smashing through compartments and structural supports. Secondary explosions rippled across the vessel as power conduits ruptured and fuel cells ignited. Commander Zeeksnell stared in disbelief as one of his most powerful ships was crippled in a single shot. Return fire. All ships. Concentrate on that vessel, but the Defiant was already gone, having changed trajectory the instant after firing. Valorian targeting systems, designed to track ships moving at normal combat speeds, could not keep up with human maneuvers. All 7 human ships engaged simultaneously. They moved in patterns that seemed chaotic, but were actually carefully coordinated. They struck from unexpected angles, fired while moving at speeds that should have made accurate shooting impossible, and executed maneuvers that violated every principle of standard naval warfare. The Valorian shields were designed to absorb energy weapons. The human railguns delivered kinetic impacts that the shields had never been built to handle. Each shot that connected did massive damage. A Valorian ship tried to ram one of the human vessels, using superior mass as a weapon. The human ship accelerated at 9 gravities, evading the collision and firing its railgun at point-blank range into the Valorian's engine section. The enemy ship went dead in space, its power systems destroyed. Lisa Warren pushed her ship through another punishing turn, feeling her ribs compress despite the pressure suit. Brandon, target the flagship. Let's send their commander a message. The Defiant lined up for a shot on the Eternal Fury. Valorian point defense systems fired desperately, trying to intercept the incoming projectile, but the tungsten rod was moving at nearly 30,000 kilometers per second. The defensive fire might as well have been trying to stop a meteor with small arms. The projectile struck the Eternal Fury's command section. Commander Zeeksnell had just enough time to see the wall of his bridge rupture before emergency force fields activated, sealing him in a small survival bubble. His ship, his pride, his redemption, was dying around him. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, 5 Valorian ships were destroyed completely. 3 more were crippled and drifting. The remaining 7 had taken heavy damage and were retreating at maximum speed. The human fleet had sustained damage to 2 vessels. No fatalities. Admiral Ross watched from Earth as the Valorian ships fled. He opened a channel to the crippled Eternal Fury. Commander Zeeksnell, we are sending rescue craft to retrieve survivors from the damaged ships. This includes your own personnel. In his survival bubble, surrounded by the wreckage of his ship, Zeeksnell could not understand. Why? He asked. Why save us? We came to destroy you. Ross's expression was unreadable. Because we're not like you, Commander. We don't slaughter helpless enemies, but make no mistake, if you or any Valorian ship approaches our territory again, we will not show restraint a second time. The rescue operations began. Human crews pulled Valorian survivors from the wreckage, provided medical care, and treated them with a level of respect that shocked the captured warriors. They had expected execution or torture. Instead, they received bandages and food. Ambassador Velthar stood in the observation deck, watching the aftermath of the battle. He had witnessed many conflicts in his long life, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans had fought with precision and power that exceeded their apparent technology. More remarkably, they had shown mercy at the moment of victory. He approached Admiral Ross. Your people continue to surprise me. Admiral, I tried to warn the galaxy, but I see now that I did not understand the full extent of human capabilities. Ross shrugged. We only used about 40% of our weapons' full capacity. The railguns can fire at much higher velocities. Our ships can pull higher gravities. We have defensive systems we didn't even activate. We wanted to send a message, not commit genocide. And what message is that? That humanity can defend itself, Ross replied. That we're not easy prey. But also, that we're not monsters. We could have destroyed every Valorian ship. We chose not to. Maybe that will make them think twice about starting wars. Velthar nodded slowly. The galaxy will hear of this battle. Many will react with fear. Some will call for your containment or destruction. Let them try, Lisa Warren said, joining the conversation. Her pressure suit was still marked with stress indicators from the high-gravity maneuvers. We've shown we can fight. Now we'll show we can build. Earth has resources, determination, and 7 billion people who refuse to be conquered. The old Korathi looked at both humans with something approaching admiration. I will tell the council what I witnessed here. Perhaps now they will listen when I speak of humanity's nature. The news of Earth's victory spread through the galaxy within days. The Valorian Empire, one of the most powerful military forces in known space, had been decisively defeated by a species that most considered primitive. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Unity Assembly convened an emergency session. Species that had dismissed humanity as irrelevant now demanded answers. How could such a young civilization possess such advanced military technology? How could their warriors endure accelerations that would kill most species? And most importantly, what were they going to do about it? Commander Zixnell, recovered from his injuries, sat in a cell on Earth awaiting trial for war crimes. He spent his time reviewing the battle data, trying to understand how he had lost so completely. The numbers made no sense. The human ships should not have been able to move like that. The human crews should not have survived those maneuvers, but they had. And in doing so, they had proven Elder Velthar right. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The council chamber on Nexus Prime was more crowded than it had been in decades. Every species wanted to be present for this emergency session. The air was thick with tension and the constant hum of translation devices working overtime. Ambassador Velthar stood at the same podium where he had delivered his warning 6 months earlier. This time, no one was laughing. No one was dismissing his words. The battle at Earth had changed everything. High Magistrate Korvesh called the session to order. His usual calm demeanor was strained. We are gathered to discuss the situation regarding humanity. Ambassador Velthar, you have requested to speak. The floor is yours. Velthar activated the holographic display. Images from the battle appeared in the center of the chamber. Valorian ships being destroyed. Human vessels moving at impossible speeds. The final count of casualties. 15 Valorian warships, Velthar stated. Against 7 human vessels. The result, 5 Valorian ships destroyed, 8 crippled or damaged, 7 retreated. Human losses, minor damage to 2 ships, 0 fatalities. The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Species that had not heard the full details of the battle reacted with disbelief. The Valorians were known as one of the galaxy's premier military powers. To see them defeated so completely was unthinkable. Councillor Merath of the Quarren Collective raised a tentacle for attention. His species were scientists, known for their analytical approach to problems. Ambassador Velthar, we have analyzed the battle data. The accelerations performed by human ships should have killed the crews. Can you explain this? Velthar nodded. I can. Human biology evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme environmental stresses. Their bodies can withstand forces that would render most of us unconscious or dead. During the battle, human crews endured sustained accelerations exceeding 6 standard gravities, with peak forces reaching 9 gravities during evasive maneuvers. He pulled up comparative data. For context, most galactic species cannot function above 2 gravities. At 3 gravities, organs begin to fail. At 6 gravities, death is almost certain. Humans trained their military personnel to operate at these levels routinely. General Kavrex of the Talarian Federation stood. His species were military strategists, respected throughout the galaxy for their tactical knowledge. This presents a significant security concern. If humans can build ships that move at such speeds and weapons that bypass our standard defenses, they could threaten any species in the galaxy. A murmur of agreement spread through the chamber. Fear was replacing shock. I propose immediate containment protocols, Kavrex continued. Restrict human expansion. Limit their access to advanced technology. Monitor their military development. We cannot allow such a dangerous species to operate unchecked. Several species began voicing support for the proposal. The mood in the chamber turned hostile. Humanity, the newcomer, was being painted as a threat that needed to be controlled or eliminated. The doors to the chamber opened. Captain Eric Morrison entered, accompanied by Dr. Sophie Grant. Both wore formal diplomatic attire, but there was something different about them now. They carried themselves with quiet confidence, the kind that came from knowing their people had proven themselves in battle. High Magistrate Corvesh acknowledged their arrival. Ambassador Morrison, you arrive at an opportune moment. The Council is discussing humanity's place in galactic society. Eric walked to the speaker's platform. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with species that weeks ago had barely noticed humanity's existence. Now they watched him with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and calculation. Honored Council members, Eric began. I understand you're afraid. The battle at Earth demonstrated capabilities that most of you didn't know we possessed. General Kovrex is correct that we could threaten other species if we chose to. But that's the key word, if we chose to. He gestured to Sophie, who activated her own data display. Information about human culture, history, and philosophy began scrolling across the hologram. Earth has a violent history, Eric continued. We've fought countless wars among ourselves. We've developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. But we've also developed something else. The understanding that violence should be a last resort, not a first choice. Sophie stepped forward. Let me share some context about human society. We have over 200 distinct nations on Earth. Thousands of different cultures. Hundreds of languages. We spent most of our history fighting each other over territory, resources, and beliefs. She pulled up images of Earth's history. Ancient battles. World wars. Nuclear weapons. But then something changed, Sophie explained. We realized that our differences made us stronger, not weaker. We learned to cooperate, to share resources, to resolve conflicts through dialogue instead of warfare. It took us thousands of years. But we got there. The United Earth government was formed not through conquest, but through voluntary cooperation. Eric took over again. When the Valorians attacked New Haven, we could have responded with overwhelming force. We have weapons we didn't use at Earth. Our ships were operating at partial capacity. We could have destroyed their entire fleet. He paused, letting that sink in. But we didn't. We defended ourselves. We stopped the threat, and then we rescued their survivors and treated them with dignity. Commander Zeke Snell is currently on Earth, receiving medical care and awaiting a fair trial under international law. We didn't execute him. We didn't torture him. We're treating him the way we would want our own people to be treated, General Kovrex interrupted. That proves nothing. You showed mercy once. You could change your minds at any time. You're right, Eric agreed. We could. Just like any species in this chamber could decide to start a war tomorrow. The question isn't about our capability for violence. Every species here has that capability. The question is about our intentions. Dr. Sophie pulled up more data. We've prepared a detailed proposal for the Council. Full transparency on our military capabilities, within reason. Regular inspections of our shipyards, participation in joint defense initiatives. We're willing to work with the galactic community, not against it. But there's one condition, Eric added. You treat us as equals. Not as threats to be contained. Not as primitives to be controlled. As partners in building a better galaxy. Counselor Merath studied the proposal carefully. Your offer is generous, Ambassador Morrison. But how can we trust that humanity will not become aggressive once you develop more advanced technology? Eric smiled slightly. How can we trust that you won't? Trust isn't about certainty, Counselor. It's about choosing to believe in the best of others while preparing for the worst. We're asking you to give us the same chance you give every other species. Ambassador Velthar spoke up from his position. If I may address the Council, I have observed humanity for longer than most species in this chamber have been spacefaring. What Ambassador Morrison says is true. Humans are capable of great violence, but they are also capable of great compassion. He walked to the center of the chamber. The Korathi have records of human behavior spanning centuries. We have seen them rescue strangers from disasters. We have seen them sacrifice their own comfort to help others. We have seen them choose mercy when revenge would have been easier. The old elder looked directly at General Kovrex. You fear humanity because they are strong. I suggest you should respect them for the same reason, and then work to earn their friendship rather than their enmity. The debate continued for hours. Species argued for and against humanity's integration into galactic society. Some wanted strict controls. Others saw opportunity for alliance. The chamber was divided. Finally, High Magistrate Korvesh called for a vote. The question before the council is this: do we grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Unity Assembly, with all rights and responsibilities that entails? The vote was close. 143 species voted in favor. 89 voted against. 15 abstained. The motion passes, Korvesh announced. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Unity Assembly. Eric and Sophie exchanged relieved glances. It was a victory. But they both knew it was just the beginning. As the session ended, several ambassadors approached Eric with offers of cooperation, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, joint scientific projects. The species that had voted in favor of humanity saw opportunity, but others maintained their distance. General Kovrex gathered with representatives from more militaristic species, their expressions dark and suspicious. They had voted against humanity and clearly did not accept the council's decision with grace. Ambassador Velthar approached Eric as the chamber emptied. Congratulations, Ambassador Morrison. You achieved what many thought impossible. Thanks to you, Ambassador, Eric replied. Your support made the difference. Velthar's expression was serious. Do not assume this matter is settled. You saw the vote count. Nearly half the council fears or opposes you. Some will test you in other ways, not through direct military action, but through politics, economics, sabotage. Sophie frowned. We expected that. But we'll handle it the same way we handle everything. By proving we're worth trusting. The old Korathi nodded. I believe you will. The question is whether the galaxy will accept that proof before someone does something foolish. Over the following months, humanity began integrating into galactic society. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists. Human diplomats negotiated trade agreements. Human ships joined mixed-species patrols to combat piracy. Some species embraced humanity's presence. The Quarren Collective found human scientists refreshingly creative in their approaches to problems. The peaceful Manarians appreciated humanity's emphasis on cooperation over conquest, but others remained hostile. Small incidents occurred. A human cargo ship was denied docking at a Talarian port without explanation. Human researchers were excluded from certain scientific conferences. Trade negotiations with several species stalled over minor technicalities. It became clear that while humanity had won acceptance from the Council, they had not won acceptance from the galaxy. That would take more than one battle, or one vote. Admiral Kevin Ross, watching from Earth, understood this perfectly. He continued building Earth's defenses, training new crews, and developing new technologies, not because he wanted war, but because he knew that strength was the foundation of peace. They respect us now, he told his staff during a briefing. But respect based on fear is fragile. We need to show them we're more than just warriors. We need to show them what humanity is really capable of. Captain Lisa Warren, now promoted to Commodore and given command of Earth's Forward Defense Group, agreed. The next test won't be military. It'll be something else. Something that shows whether we're worthy of the trust some species are giving us. She was right. The next test was coming, though none of them knew it yet. And it would prove far more challenging than any battle. On a remote research station at the edge of explored space, scientists from 12 species worked together on a project studying quantum fluctuations in subspace. Among them were two humans, Dr. Ryan Foster and Dr. Emma Liu. They were about to detect the first signs of something that would change the galaxy forever. Something that would test humanity in ways that no battle could. Something that would prove Elder Velthar right about humanity's true nature. The Void Plague was coming. Dr. Ryan Foster stared at the medical scan results for the third time, hoping he had made a mistake. He had not. The data was clear and terrifying. The research station orbiting the dead planet Xerix 7 had been studying quantum anomalies for 6 months. 2 days ago, one of the Talarian researchers had collapsed during a routine experiment. Within 12 hours, 3 more were sick. Now half the station was infected with something that should not exist. Ryan was an epidemiologist, one of Earth's leading experts on alien diseases. At 42, he had studied every known pathogen in the galactic database. This was not in the database. This was something new, and it was spreading. Emma, he called to his colleague. You need to see this. Dr. Emma Liu was a quantum physicist, brilliant and focused. She had been analyzing the energy readings from the experiment. When the first person got sick, she walked over to Ryan's station, her expression concerned. The cellular breakdown is happening at the molecular level, Ryan explained, pointing to the scans. But look at the pattern. It's not biological. It's quantum decay. The disease is literally unraveling matter at the subatomic level. Emma studied the data, her eyes widening. That's impossible. Quantum effects don't work like that in biological systems. Tell that to the 6 people in the medical bay who are dying, Ryan replied grimly. The station commander, a Quarren named Merkai, entered the lab. His tentacles were pale with stress. Dr. Foster, we have 3 more cases. Whatever this is, it's accelerating. I've ordered a complete quarantine. But I need answers. Ryan pulled up the infection timeline. It started 12 hours after the last quantum experiment. Initial symptoms appear within 6 hours of exposure. Full cellular breakdown occurs in approximately 72 hours. We've tried every standard treatment. Nothing works. What about the humans? Merkai asked. You and Dr. Liu have been exposed. Why aren't you sick? That was the question Ryan had been asking himself. He ran a scan on his own blood. The quantum signature was there, but his cells were responding differently. They were adapting. I think it's our immune system, Emma suggested. Earth exposed humans to millions of different pathogens over billions of years. Our immune response is incredibly adaptable. Ryan nodded slowly. We're not immune, but we're resisting better than other species. The question is, can we use that? The answer would have to wait. The station's communication system lit up with incoming messages. The quantum plague, as it was being called, had appeared on 17 other stations and colonies. It was spreading through subspace, transmitted by the same quantum signals ships used for faster-than-light travel. Within a week, the plague had reached 50 worlds. Within 2 weeks, 200. The galactic medical community was overwhelmed. Species with advanced immune systems fell just as quickly as those with basic biology. The mortality rate was 97%. The Galactic Unity Assembly convened an emergency session. The chamber that had recently debated humanity's membership now faced potential extinction of multiple species. High Magistrate Korvesh addressed the council, his voice strained. We face the greatest crisis in galactic history. The Void Plague, as it has been named, affects all known biology. Our best scientists have found no cure. Quarantine measures have failed to contain it. We estimate that if the current rate continues, 40% of the galactic population will be dead within 6 months. The chamber was silent. Fear permeated every corner. Ambassador Velthar stood slowly. I have consulted with human medical researchers. They have a theory that may offer hope. Captain Eric Morrison approached the podium with Dr. Sophie Grant. Behind them, a holographic image of Dr. Ryan Foster appeared, broadcasting from the quarantine zone where he continued to work. We believe we can develop a treatment, Ryan said without preamble. But it requires a component that only one species can provide: humans. He displayed his research. The human immune system has a unique property. Our cells can adapt to recognize and fight quantum-level threats. We're not immune to the plague, but we resist it long enough for our bodies to develop a response. Sophie continued the explanation. We can harvest specific cells from human donors and modify them to work in other species. It's similar to how we treat certain cancers on Earth. The process is complex and must be tailored to each species' biology, but our initial tests show promise. General Kov Rex, who had opposed humanity's membership, stood abruptly. You expect us to believe that humans, who just joined galactic society, can solve a problem that our greatest scientists cannot? I don't expect you to believe anything, Ryan replied evenly. I expect you to look at the data. Your people are dying. Mine can help. You can accept that help, or you can let pride kill you. Your choice. The chamber erupted in argument. Some species saw hope. Others suspected a human trick to gain influence. The debate might have continued for hours if not for a transmission that interrupted the session. Counselor Marath appeared on screen from his homeworld. The Quarren scientist looked worse than anyone had ever seen him. His normally vibrant skin was gray. His tentacles trembled. The plague has reached Quor, he said weakly. 60% of our population is infected. Our medical facilities are overwhelmed. If anyone can help us, we ask you to do so quickly. The transmission ended. Marath, one of the galaxy's most respected scientists, was dying. Eric Morrison spoke into the silence. Earth is mobilizing every medical ship we have. We're sending 70% of our trained medical personnel to affected worlds. We're establishing treatment centers, and we're asking for human volunteers to donate the cells we need for the cure. 70%? Someone asked in disbelief. You would leave Earth protected by only 30% of your medical forces? The plague hasn't reached Earth yet, Sophie explained. But it will. When it does, we'll have 30% of our people at home and 70% of our people spread across the galaxy with experience treating it. We're not abandoning Earth, we're preparing for the inevitable by helping others first. Ambassador Lucas Martinez, who had replaced Eric as Earth's senior diplomat while Eric coordinated the medical response, added, We're also sharing all our research freely. No patents, no trade restrictions. Any species that wants to replicate our treatment methods can do so. General Kovrex stared at the humans. Why? Why would you risk your own people to save species that opposed you just months ago? What do you gain? Why? Eric met his gaze steadily. We gain a galaxy where billions of people don't die from a preventable disease. We gain allies instead of corpses. We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing when it mattered most. The vote to accept human assistance was unanimous. Within days, human medical ships arrived at plague-stricken worlds. Dr. Ryan Foster, despite being in a quarantine zone himself, coordinated the research efforts. Dr. Emma Liu worked with alien physicists to understand the quantum mechanics of the plague. The treatment process was complex. Human volunteers had to donate bone marrow, a painful extraction that left them weak for days. The donated cells had to be processed and adapted for each alien species' unique biology. Then the treatment had to be administered in carefully controlled doses. On the Quarren homeworld, human medical teams worked around the clock. They set up field hospitals. They trained local medical personnel. They administered treatments to thousands of dying aliens. Counselor Marath was among the first to receive the experimental treatment. He watched as a human doctor, exhausted and pale from donating her own marrow just hours before, carefully injected the modified cells into his system. Why are you doing this? He asked weakly. You donated your own cells. And now you're here treating me instead of resting. The doctor, a young woman named Dr. Amy Chen, smiled tiredly. Because you need help, and I can provide it. That's what doctors do. The treatment worked. Marath's cellular breakdown stopped. His body began to heal. Within a week, he was well enough to return to his laboratory, where he immediately began helping to mass-produce the treatment for his people. Similar scenes played out across hundreds of worlds. Human volunteers lined up to donate despite the pain. Human medical personnel worked shifts that would have killed most species, sustained by stimulants and sheer determination. Human ships carried treatments to the most remote colonies, often at great risk to themselves. The galaxy watched in amazement. The species that many had feared for its military might was proving itself through compassion instead of conquest. But the cost was high. 12 human doctors died when their ship was caught in a quantum storm while delivering treatments to a remote colony. 43 volunteers suffered permanent damage from excessive donations. Hundreds more worked themselves to exhaustion and beyond. On Earth, the news of casualties was met not with calls to bring people home, but with more volunteers stepping forward. The waiting list to donate grew longer every day. Ambassador Velthar visited Earth during the crisis. He wanted to see for himself what drove humans to such sacrifice. He toured the donation centers, where ordinary citizens lined up to give part of themselves to save alien species they had never met. He spoke with a young man named Danny Brooks, who was donating for the third time, despite the pain and risk. "Why do you keep coming back?" Velthar asked. Danny shrugged. "My sister is on one of the medical ships. She's out there helping people who are dying. This is how I help her help them. Besides, I'm healthy and strong. If my bone marrow can save someone's life, how could I not give it?" The old Korathi understood then. This was not strategy or politics. This was human nature. They saw a problem, and they solved it. They saw suffering, and they ended it. They saw people dying, and they saved them, regardless of species, politics, or past conflicts. 4 months after the plague began, the crisis ended. Human-derived treatments had saved billions of lives. The mortality rate dropped from 97% to less than 5% in areas where treatment was available. Worlds that had been preparing for extinction were rebuilding. The Galactic Unity Assembly reconvened to address the aftermath. Every species sent representatives. Every seat was filled. High Magistrate Korvesh stood at the podium. "We gather today to acknowledge a debt that can never be fully repaid. Humanity, the newest member of our assembly, has saved the galaxy from catastrophe." He gestured to where Eric Morrison and Sophie Grant sat. They gave freely of their own people. They asked for nothing in return. They risked their lives to save ours. Many species in this chamber opposed human membership. Many feared human power. I count myself among those who underestimated what humanity truly represents. Ambassador Velthar was given the honor of dedicating the memorial. A monument was erected on Nexus Prime, a crystalline structure that reflected light in patterns, representing every species that had been saved. The inscription read, "To humanity, who broke every limit we believed immutable, and in doing so, taught us we had placed limits on ourselves." Velthar spoke to the assembled representatives. "The Korathi warned you of humanity's physical limits, their capacity for violence, their resilience in war. But we also tried to tell you of their greatest quality, the one that defines them more than any other. Humans do not limit their compassion to their own kind." He turned to Eric and Sophie. "You have proven that strength is not just about winning battles. It is about choosing mercy over revenge. It is about helping others, when helping yourself would be easier. It is about breaking the limits of selfishness and fear that hold so many of us back." General Kavrex, who had opposed humanity most vocally, approached the human delegation. His expression was solemn. "Ambassador Morrison, I owe you an apology. I feared your people because I judged you by your weapons. I did not see your hearts. My world owes its survival to human volunteers. I will never forget that." Eric shook the general's hand. "We all make mistakes, General. What matters is what we do after we realize them." 1 year after the plague's end, the galaxy was forever changed. Human medical ships were welcomed on every world. Human researchers worked alongside alien scientists. The species that had called for humanity's containment now sought humanity's partnership. Dr. Ryan Foster and Dr. Emma Liu received the highest scientific honors from a dozen species. They used the recognition to establish joint research centers focused on preventing future quantum-level threats. The 12 human doctors who died delivering treatments were memorialized on Earth and on the worlds they saved. Their names were taught to alien children as examples of sacrifice and heroism. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Velthar stood with Eric Morrison before the memorial. The old Korathi looked at the crystalline monument, watching light dance across its surface. "Did you always know it would come to this?" Eric asked. "When you warned the Council about humanity, did you know we would prove ourselves this way?" Velthar considered the question carefully. "I knew humanity would exceed the Council's expectations. Your history showed us you were capable of great things when challenged, but I did not know you would exceed our hopes. I thought you would prove yourselves through strength. Instead, you proved yourselves through compassion. That is far more powerful." Eric watched human ships departing from the station, heading to various worlds on continuing medical missions. Former adversaries now traveled alongside them as partners. "Elder Velthar," Eric said, "thank you for trying to warn them. Even though they didn't listen, you never stopped believing we were worth the effort." The old Korathi smiled, the first time Eric had seen him truly smile. "That is what the elders do, Ambassador. We observe, we record, and we hope that younger species will learn from the lessons we share. Humanity taught us a new lesson, that sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when not to use it." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the ships depart. The galaxy had learned what the elders had tried to warn them about. Humanity broke limits. Not just physical limits or technological limits, but the limits of compassion, sacrifice, and hope. And in breaking those limits, they had shown the galaxy what was possible when species chose cooperation over conflict, when they chose to help rather than harm, when they chose to see the best in others rather than fear the worst. The void plague was over. The crisis had passed. But humanity's real test was just beginning. They had proven they could fight, and they could heal. Now they would prove they could lead, not through conquest, but through example. The elders had warned them. None had believed. Until humanity broke every limit and showed the galaxy what they could become together.